Hi, Christina Sawyer. I will be presenting my Working Memory Ninja Last Superhero mini professional development training that I was able to implement this past winter and spring to my teachers at my school. I worked with a fellow teacher who's actually an AIS intervention specialist who actually works with K1 and 2, specifically K1 and 2, K1 and K1 teachers on foundational skills, making sure those kids get where they need to be by second grade. She was actually asked to train several working memory classes this past year, district trainings actually. So we were able to discuss my research, um, and she was able to talk about what she learned through her training and delivering them, and a lot of similarities. And so she was a perfect mentor. I chose this topic because it's part of my research, a component of my research for my dissertation. And it's just a passion that I have about connecting teachers with brain-based research and memory and poverty. Our school is Title I Renaissance. We have so many of those, and since the recession, we've had even more. Students are coming to school, and their frontal lobes are not well developed, and we as teachers cannot keep saying they can't learn. Yes, they can learn. We have to figure out how their brain is learning and fix that, and help apply strategies and techniques to make sure our students are achieving, because that's our ultimate goal. I presented this at Gibsonton Elementary. It's a K-5 school. It's a Title I Renaissance school. Like I said, we have EBD units, we have ESC units, very diverse group of students. And we also have a lot of teachers that have the fixed mindset that students can't learn. And I'm hoping to blow that out of the water with my research and with my information that I'm presenting to them, to make them see that, yes, we have so much more power than we are even aware of, and that we have to do our due diligence to make sure our kids learn. So I started off by just giving them once a month, the third Thursday of every month, February through May, an advertisement for the class, and I wanted to kind of get their attention. Superhero, working memory, and then I had 5 objectives that I wanted to meet through each of the 4 objectives of the 4 mini modules that I presented. And throughout the presentation, I'll brief the objectives will be up on each of the screen. For time's sake, I'm not going to be able to read them to you. Module 1 is just a background to have teachers recognize that most of their students have symptoms of children with poor working memory and poverty, and that they have the huge ability to impact student development and foundational skills for K1 and 2, and that's their mandate. And for them to see that and recognize them, that it's optimal that they learn those. So we have to be methodical in how we teach, and why we teach, and why we do what we do, and know why we do. This module, I just wanted them to take away some brain breaks, to implement those within their content specific areas, to give their kids a break, to rest the kids' brain, and to infuse some memory in there, recognizing that the hand clap patterns, sentences, hand jives are all actually patterns, and that if you practice them, it's going to eventually overlap with their learning. But it also is fun for the kids and the teachers. Module 2, I basically just wanted them to understand that practice and rehearsal. Practice is important, that we can't teach it once and expect the students to get it, and that when we teach students, we have to be cognizant of the strategies and the activities, specifically the activities that we choose in order to get it into concrete memory, to get it into that long-term memory, to practice it with the working memory. All those components is a part of learning, and so that they don't get to 4th, 5th, and 6th grade and they never learned it. They were taught it, but they didn't learn it. That's the disconnect, is that teachers are saying they learned it. No, they didn't learn it. You taught it once and expect them to know it. And it's breaking that down and recognizing that we need to do a better job as educators. The ultimate goal is transfer. We want our kids to do well in our SATs and our FSA tests in the spring. How do we get there? We can't teach it once and not do it. So I wanted the teachers to understand that there's transfer during learning, and just the transfer of learning in general, and looking at SUSE's the way that students learn in their brain and how that affects their learning, and that we have to do a better job of making sure it's transferring by choosing appropriate activities, choosing the right lesson plans, creating the right lesson plans that enhance learning and memory. I wanted them to have an idea of several research-based strategies that we're going to implement next year. I just wanted to get their feet wet. I wanted them to kind of understand, recognize that some of the things they're already doing, we just have to enhance those. We have to be more specific and work with them with integrity with our students and identify those students. So I highlighted those strategies, and then I created this intervention sheet, and I wanted them to find one student, create a goal, SMART goal, and develop a conference with them and highlight one or two strategies that they felt would help that child, that would help with their with just academics in general, but their learning specifically. And so I created this, and this was supposed to be a 6 weeks collaboration of data of one student and or below. They could have done a group of students that had similar behaviors that they wanted to collect data on and create some type of reinforcement with that strategy to impact the students' learning. Module 3 was about them create the successful participants will demonstrate knowledge of working memory capacity for all students, and that they will be able to create a research-based type of activity that they could use in planning to making sure that the students are learning for recall and memory. So I wanted the teachers to briefly understand that teachers have the ability to change students' IQ, and that genes are 30%, gene activity, environment are 30%, and environment 30%. So teachers have a lot of power in their hands to change and increase students' IQ, and it's not fixed, and that we have a mandate to make sure that we're doing that. I also wanted to bring in Susan's thoughts about environment, and that environment is everything. While environment at home is stuck in a certain spot, maybe lack of education, we have the opposite ability to change their environment due to education, and we have a huge mandate to make sure this happens, and that we have a lot more power at our fingertips than we could ever possibly imagine. It's just a matter of utilizing that and being being respectful of that. In this activity, I wanted them to create a spaced learning lesson plans. This is kind of intense for a primary. We probably would start smaller and maybe not necessarily a whole month, but maybe 3 weeks or even 2 weeks. Basically, the object of this is this example and this example, primary and intermediate, would be to identify activities that would go along with specific strategies that you identified from a previous assessment. And the goal is to teach it, review it a day later, 2 days later, have an activity that they have to struggle to recall from memory, so that they are working with it in the working memory, long-term memory. And you would do that multiple times throughout a month, and then you would assess every other week with mixed practices, which means that you might pull from previous 2 or 3 weeks skill that you brought in, and you would have a mixed practice, and that's how you would collect your data. The teachers would collect their data to see if this memory activities are working, and allowing these activities that they're learning specific skills for foundational skills are actually going into long-term memory. I basically took information from 5th grade and created a lesson plan and told them activities they could do, and also gave them examples of mixed practice strategies that they could implement on their lesson plans of primary and intermediate. So we did that for Module 3. Module 4 was basically, okay, now that we've learned all of this and we have an idea of where we want to go and what we want to do next year to really hone in on it, where are we going to go? So I wanted the teachers to think about what they were teaching, how they were teaching it, and are the students going to understand it. Now they have a better understanding about learning and cognition and poverty and memory. I had the teachers answer a few questions on a so what, now what activity, and they posted them, highlighting them. One of the teachers for the what said, what are the most effective brain breaks? The so what. One teacher mentioned collecting and implementing working memory behaviors greatly impact her student achievement. And one teacher mentioned working memory concepts and modules for the now what will help the population achieve if we commit to doing them with fidelity. I actually had them create 2 SMART goals and just a goal in general for teaching as a result of the previous 3 modules. So the teachers were able to do that for our last meeting together. During that meeting, after that meeting, I created a 17-question survey monkey that actually asked questions regarding the module in general. And 4 questions that stood out was question 8 about data collection, and this refers back to the tool that I created, and I wasn't doing the testing. I didn't have time to go back in there and really hone in on those and really sit side by side and really help coach those teachers. So I'm hoping to coach and mentor them next year with the strategies and really collect some valuable data. So that's where that question came from. Question 12, we didn't have a whole lot of time to really delve into those memories. Not only did they not be able to really able to use the data collection chart that I created, but the strategies, there just wasn't enough time. But I wanted to get their feet wet. I wanted them to just get a little taste for what we're going to be doing. So that's what the impetus for that question. Question 15, poverty was talked about in module 1. I didn't embed it because we had to move on. But all the teachers know that the impetus for this is the fact that our students come from poverty. We are free and reduced lunch, and we're Renaissance. So we're going to be able to work on that, actually poverty, next year when we do a book study with our whole entire school. And lastly, this has to do with the demonstrating the memory concepts of the strategies, and that's where that came from. So I plan on using that techniques a lot more next year. And there's a 17 question survey that I created for the SurveyMonkey, and it discussed facilitator effectiveness, future concept implementation, synthesis of module breaks, brain breaks, working memory, facilitator observation, and participant feedback. Four participants were able to attend all 4 sessions, and there are those questions again. Here's just some feedback that I got from the survey when they were able to write in what they were doing. I was able to get in the classrooms, and I was able to, for sake of time, I'm not going to be able to read all of them, but I was able to collect my own, a little bit of some research here using some document notes. Just takes down some observations that I saw, whether or not the teachers were implementing the brain breaks. This is what I was looking for, and I told them ahead of time I was coming to look at evidence of brain breaks, seeing if the teacher was doing it, the students were doing it, if I could see any growth. And I was able to see growth from the kindergarten, the first grade teacher, and then this teacher could see some growth with her students. And then this teacher recognized that she wasn't really doing that, but she recognized that she wanted to do them. And each teacher, I gave them feedback on where they could go next on the brain breaks. Here's an example of an email that I gave to the teachers, and I gave them additional feedback. So each teacher got their own feedback email, and I thanked them for allowing me to come into the classroom, and just gave them some highlights and just gave them some kudos for what they were doing. And I gave each teacher something they could work on for next time. The first teacher was the kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher, and the other 2 teachers that I highlighted were kindergarten teachers. And then here is a response. The first grade teacher actually sent me this response as a response to the email that I sent her. So that was really sweet that she could do that. So that was some validation. Lastly, there's some teacher reflection questions that were on the SurveyMonkey, and I wanted to highlight for question 1. There was 4 questions actually, and so I wanted to highlight that as far as what pieces of learning did you find most applicable and implementable in this class. And this teacher wrote that she found that the brain breaks and the space learning memory interventions were applicable. Question 3 rather, what barriers hindered your implementation of module concepts with fidelity? And one teacher wrote that time, of course, and that she needs to set a goal to make sure she's doing it with fidelity, and that she believes that it was not the best time of year to do it, which I would concur, and that she's looking forward to doing it next year. She's already thinking about the future and how she's going to implement that into her pedagogy and into her class culture next year. Here's question 2. And this one was, how does your teaching pedagogy change as a result of implementing module strategies and brain breaks and memory strategies, which were the 3 concepts that I covered. And this teacher just talked about types of learning, and that she's going to use them with her students next year. She really liked that. All right, and then question 4 talks about strategies and further coaching, and all the teachers agreed that they would like me to come into the classroom next year. So participant SMART goals for next year, I have my SMART goals here. And I've created SMART goals for myself for next year, and then each teacher, I actually did next steps. So what I'm going to do next year for my SMART goals, and this is what I'm going to be doing next year as I work with the teachers in the classrooms, because they've invited me back into the classroom. So I'm really excited about that. And then here's my other next steps for next year. And it goes along with the memory and poverty training that we're going to have for next year as a result. And then lastly, my SMART goals for myself that I'm going to be implementing as I work with the teachers, the sport teachers, and implementing these strategies. Thank you so much.